So where do we go from here?
Well, Lorenzo doesn't leave us completely without hope. In fact, he believes that knowledge is power.
I like that.
He argues that by understanding these issues, by becoming more aware of the ingredients in the products we use, and understanding the historical context of these problems, we can start to make more informed choices about our health and well-being.
That makes sense. Education is key.
It is. We need to empower ourselves to make better choices for ourselves and our communities.
So what are some practical steps that we can take to protect ourselves and our families?
Lorenzo encourages us to become more conscious consumers. We need to read labels, carefully research ingredients, and choose products that are free of potentially harmful chemicals, like coumarin.
I think that's something we can all do.
It is. It's about taking control of our own health and making informed decisions.
And maybe putting a little pressure on these companies to be more transparent about what they're putting in their products.
Exactly. It's about demanding better and holding these corporations accountable for the impact they're having on our health and our communities.
That's a great point. We need to be more discerning about where we spend our money.
Absolutely. And Lorenzo also talks about the importance of supporting Black-owned businesses.
Oh, that's a great idea.
It is. He believes that by supporting businesses that prioritize natural ingredients, ethical practices, and the well-being of their communities, we can help create a more just and equitable system.
I love that. So it's not just about avoiding harmful products. It's about actively supporting those who are doing things right.
Exactly. It's about putting our money where our values are.
Lorenzo's book is a real call to action.
It is. It's a wake-up call for all of us.
It's not just about pointing fingers. It's about empowering ourselves and our communities to take control of our health and our futures.
You got it. It's about demanding better and creating a world where everyone has the opportunity to thrive.
I think that's a perfect place to end this part of our deep dive into We the People Have Been Poisoned.
Yeah, this has been a lot to take in, but it's so important that we're having these conversations.
Absolutely. This is just the tip of the iceberg, though.
It is.
In our next part, we'll be diving even deeper into Lorenzo's investigation.
Can't wait.
We'll be exploring the evidence he presents, unpacking his theories about targeted marketing, corporate greed, and the potential consequences for Black communities.
This is going to be good.
Stay tuned, folks.
We'll be right back. Welcome back to our deep dive into We the People Have Been Poisoned.
When we left off, we were talking about this idea of intentional targeting of certain communities.
Right. Lorenzo's argument that some companies might be deliberately marketing these products with coumarin to Black Americans.
Yeah, and you raised a really important question at the end of the last part.
About whether there's actual evidence to support that claim.
Exactly. Is there hard proof, or are there other factors that could explain these health disparities?
That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
And to try and answer it, Lorenzo takes us on a deep dive into history.
History.
Yeah, he goes all the way back to the eugenics movement of the early 20th century.
Okay, for those of us who aren't familiar with that, can you give us a quick rundown?
Sure, eugenics was this movement that basically advocated for selective breeding.
Selective breeding.
Yeah, the idea was to improve the human race by controlling who could reproduce.
It sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie.
It does, right?
Mm.
But it was a very real and influential movement, especially in the U.S. and Europe.
Wow. And so Lorenzo is connecting this eugenics movement to his argument about targeted marketing today.
Exactly. He's suggesting that there are echoes of this thinking in the way certain communities are treated today.
Like a continuation of that ideology, even though eugenics is largely discredited now.
Right. He argues that the legacy of eugenics still lingers, especially when we look at issues like reproductive health and access to health care.
That's pretty unsettling to think about.
It is. It really is. But Lorenzo argues that these historical connections are crucial to understand because they provide context for what we're seeing today.
Context for the patterns of health disparities that we see.
Exactly. And he goes on to present this theory that certain industries actually benefit from maintaining a cycle of poor health in specific communities.
So he's suggesting a financial incentive to keep these communities sick.
That's what he's getting at. He uses the pharmaceutical industry as a prime example.
Makes sense. The sicker people are, the more medication they need.
Right, and the more money the pharmaceutical companies make.
Lorenzo also brings up some pretty startling statistics in his book about health disparity.
Yeah, it does.
Can you share some of those with us?
Sure, he highlights the fact that Black women, for example, have significantly higher rates of certain health problems compared to other demographic groups.
Like what kind of health problems?
We're talking about things like fibroids, endometriosis, certain types of cancer.
Wow, and he's linking these higher rates of illness to prolonged exposure to chemicals like coumarin.
Exactly. And he also points out that These same health problems often require expensive treatments,
Surgeries, long-term medication.
all of which further fuel the profits of the pharmaceutical industry.
So it's like this self-perpetuating cycle.
It's a vicious cycle, and it's one that Lorenzo believes is being perpetuated intentionally.
This is heavy stuff, and it's a lot to take in.
It is, and it raises some really uncomfortable questions about the systems we live in.
If Lorenzo is right, it paints a pretty bleak picture.
It does. It really makes you wonder if we're all just pawns in some bigger game.
Is there any way to break free from this cycle?
Lorenzo doesn't leave us completely hopeless. He believes that knowledge is power.
Knowledge is power. I like that.
And he argues that by understanding these issues, by becoming more aware of the ingredients in the products we use and the historical context of these problems, we can start to make more informed choices.
Informed choices about our health and well-being.
Exactly. It's about taking control of our own health and making decisions that are in our best interest.
So what are some concrete steps that we can take?
Lorenzo encourages us to become more conscious consumers.
Okay.
We need to read labels, carefully research ingredients, and choose products that are free of potentially harmful chemicals, like coumarin.
That sounds like a good starting point.
It is. It's about taking responsibility for our own health and not just blindly trusting what we see on the shelves.
And maybe putting a little pressure on these companies to be more transparent about what they're putting in their products.
Exactly. We need to hold them accountable for the impact they're having on our health and our communities.
It's about voting with our dollars.
It is. We need to be more discerning about where we spend our money and who we support.
Lorenzo also talks about the importance of supporting Black-owned businesses.
He does. He believes that by putting our money behind businesses that prioritize natural ingredients, ethical practices, and the well-being of their communities, we can help create a more just and equitable system.
I love that idea. So it's not just about avoiding harmful products. It's about actively supporting those who are doing things right.
Absolutely. It's about shifting our focus from what we're against to what we're for.
It's about creating a better world.
That's what it's all about. Welcome back to our deep dive into We the People Have Been Poisoned.
We've covered a lot of ground so far.
Yeah, we have.
From the history of coumarin and its use in rat poison,
Right.
to the disturbing possibility that products containing this chemical are being intentionally marketed towards certain communities.
Lorenzo really lays out a compelling case.
He does, and it's left me with a lot of questions, I'll be honest.
Me too.
Especially when it comes to the role of big corporations in all of this.
It's definitely something to think about.
Lorenzo seems to believe that there's a real disconnect between what these companies know about their products and what they're telling the public.
Right. He argues that there's a lot of information that's being withheld from consumers.
And that we're essentially being kept in the dark about the potential risks of the things we're using every day.
Exactly. He calls it a silent epidemic.
A silent epidemic.
Yeah, because the symptoms of coumarin exposure can be so subtle and easily misdiagnosed, people may not even realize they're being affected.
And by the time they do, the damage might already be done.
That's the scary part.
It's really unsettling to think that something you're using to improve your appearance or your health could actually be harming you.
Yeah, I know. It makes you question everything.
It does. It really does.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder who you can trust.
And that's something Lorenzo really emphasizes in his book, the importance of taking control of your own health.
Becoming an informed consumer.
Exactly. Doing your own research, reading labels carefully, and not just blindly trusting what you see in advertisements or on product packaging.
It's about being proactive and not just waiting for someone else to tell you what's safe and what's not.
Right. We need to empower ourselves to make informed decisions about our health and the health of our families.
Lorenzo also talks about the need for more transparency from these corporations.
Oh, absolutely. He's a big advocate for transparency and accountability.
He believes that consumers have a right to know what's in the products they're buying and the potential risks involved.
And he argues that companies need to be held responsible for the impact their products have on people's health and the environment.
It's about demanding better and not settling for less.
Exactly. And Lorenzo also talks about the importance of supporting alternative solutions.
Like what kind of solutions?
Things like natural remedies, traditional healing practices, and supporting businesses that prioritize ethical sourcing and sustainable production.
So it's about shifting our focus from treating symptoms to addressing the root causes of these problems.
Precisely, it's about taking a more holistic approach to health and well-being.
It's about creating a world where everyone has access to safe and effective products and where our health isn't being compromised for profit.
That's the ultimate goal.
Lorenzo's book has definitely been a real eye-opener.
It has for me, too.
It's challenged me to think more critically about the products I use and the choices I make.
And to be more aware of the systems at play.
Exactly. It's not just about individual responsibility, it's about systemic change.
We need to work together to create a healthier and more just world for everyone.
On that note, I think it's time to wrap up our deep dive into We the People Have Been Poisoned.
This has been an intense but incredibly important conversation.
It has, and we've only just scratched the surface.
There's so much more to explore.
If you're interested in learning more, I highly encourage you to pick up a copy of Lorenzo's book.
Yeah, it's definitely worth a read.
And keep those conversations going, folks. Talk to your friends, your family, your communities.
Stay informed, stay engaged, and keep pushing for a better future.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and remember, knowledge is power.